Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about Wander Ascendancies. So GG gave quite a few new tools to Wander builds, so a lot of people are going to try and league start that, or especially play it in endgame. We have new attack-based wand bases that cannot roll any spell mods. Got new skills, new supports. The endgame overall seems a lot friendlier towards builds that have good clear speed and maybe less damage, with, for example, the map effect going down significantly and Scarabs of Risks getting nerfed to being only able to be used once per map. And the last remaining question is, what ascendancy do you go for? There's a lot of creators right now thinking about starting Wanders. I will start with Elementalist, which is the one I'm most likely going to start with. But we have Jung on Necro, most likely. We have Fub, who I think is currently thinking about Deadeye. Garafa was talking about Assassin, right? So there's definitely a lot of different varieties out there. These are just the ones that I've thought about the most. But first, we have to quickly talk about Bloodline's Ascendancies, which are these secondary Ascendancies that you can unlock by killing certain bosses. And the way these work is you can remove some of your Ascendancies from your original one and allocate them in one of these other passives. We don't exactly know how it works. From what we've seen so far, it's very likely that, yeah, you're, for example, going to take 6 Ascendancy points in your main tree, and then maybe you find one node here that synergizes really well with your build, and that's kind of going to complete your whole Ascendancy. And the reason I say this is because it makes Ascendancies that usually suck because they only have like 2 good nodes, for example, Guardian, or something like Glad, or maybe Chieftain with the Tassalio plus Valaco package, makes it a lot more interesting, because if you get a Bloodlines that has 1 or 2 really good Ascendancy points, well, now you can substitute the rest of the shitty tree with those. And even though the trees that we have right now don't look all that impressive, and we don't have all the infos right now, I will be calling out certain Ascendancies that could get stronger or weaker depending on how good the Bloodline classes will turn out. The first one is most likely the one I'm going to start, which is Elementalist. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each of those, but if you've never played an Elementalist before, I want to quickly talk about Legion of the Primordial. So this node is getting a nerf from 100 to 50% increased effect this patch, which means that your total effect at level 34 when you first get it is going to go down from 180% to 130%. So now you're only going to get 50% here, but you also get 80% in total from the tree for a total of 130. The quality also gives more buff effect, and you can get more buff effect elsewhere, but for leveling purposes, it is an absolutely ridiculous node. So I did a little bit of a write-up on what you're getting after the nerfs for a Wander at level 34. This is with level 1 Golem gems with no quality. As you can see, it covers a wide variety of different things. It gives you AoE, increased damage, crit, accuracy rating, attack and cast speed, which also makes your shield charge faster. It completely alleviates any mana issues. It actually has quite a bit of regen for that level, and it also gives global defenses. We always talk about golem stacking, megalomaniacs and whatnot, but the real power of this Ascendancy really lies early on. Endgame, there are already a lot of alternatives, for example, stacking, mana stacking, strength stacking, but where this shines is at level 34 up till mid-game, like level 90 when you have almost no gear. The second upside is the spell damage start. With a lot of different wand skills, you will see that they have a little line here which says increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attack damage at, for example, 150% effect, or some of them even 200 effect. And what that means is on a witch start, you're getting a ton of increased damage. In fact, in total, you're getting, I think it was 78% increased damage, which means if you have one that converts it to 200% attack damage, like for example, a kinetic bolt or kinetic blast, that is straight up 156% increased damage from your first 6 nodes. And in general, this whole starting area kinda validates that even more. You have the spell damage per power charge. You have all your good wand clusters right here for the +1 projectile early. You have a little bit more spell damage while holding a shield here. It is the best area to be in. You also have early AoE scaling. A lot of people are talking about KB and stuff like that, and are usually talking about like projectile scaling, and the AoE part is kind of hard to scale if you're in a Deadeye area. So that's quite nice. You just straight up from Flame Golem are getting that 40 AoE. Then we have solid defenses. Elementalist has, besides the Shaper of Storm, which is another offensive option, also Bastion of Elements, which is super strong early on. When you first get into maps and you don't have a lot of HP, this flat HP shield on top is actually kind of a game changer. But later on, you can also scale something like Shaper of Winter, or maybe go for something more offensive like Mastermind of Discord. And then we also have Shaper of Flames, which gives you Fizz taken as fire, which also scales with Pyro Shock Clasp, where you can get another 30 or so, making your defensive layer actually pretty strong for a League starter. And it's just a very versatile Ascendancy. We talked about Bloodlines. you can easily replace one of these and add one Bloodline. And from what we've seen so far, it's very unlikely that you're gonna want more than one node anyways. And yeah, your big power spec is Leech of the Primordial. Maybe you could call Shaper of Flames another one of those. All of the other ones are replaceable, but they're there. The downsides of Elementalist are, first, the socket pressure. Adding another 4 golems to your setup is quite rough, especially during leveling, especially if you also want to have a ballista setup on top just to get a little bit of extra single target. So that can be an issue. You have to get your socket sorted ASAP. And then, yeah, if you need stuff like Chain Fork or extra projectiles, you will have to sort that elsewhere. It's not like a package, like for example on Deadeye. But this will only be relevant if you're not Kinetic Rain, which Kinetic Rain doesn't really interact with additional proj or Chain or Fork anyways. Next up, we have another Witch starter, which is actually Necromancer. So if you don't know, Corpse Pack got reworked this patch so that it gets 4% increased attack and cast speed for each corpse consumed recently. So this gives you up to 200% increased attack speed for your Wander, which feels absolutely amazing. And honestly, Plaguebringer before that is no bad node either. So you have a situation where you have 4 extremely good points. If you're wondering how you would proc the Corpse Pact, well, you can easily proc it with a Spellslinger setup. I heard that Jungrom wants to start this one, and I can definitely see why. This has a ton of advantages. Number one, it has the same advantages as Elementalist, just a extremely good starting area, right? Which area is just ridiculous for a Wander. The next one is if the Bloodline Ascendancies are good. For example, if you have 2 good nodes in a Bloodline Ascendancy, which seems unlikely, but if taking Corpse Pack, Plaguebringer, and then getting 2 good nodes on top would be absolutely ridiculous. So this Ascendancy, I feel like, hinges a lot on that. There are other nodes that you can make use of, which is, for example, Mistress of Sacrifice. You can spell sling some of the offerings and whatnot. And yeah, Essence Glutton is maybe interesting, but I really think that a good Bloodline Ascendancy could completely break this Ascendancy. Either way, though, with 200% increased attack speed, it's just going to feel incredible either way. Yeah, great starting area, like I said. Cons, mana could be an issue. Obviously, if you're playing Essence Glutton, probably not. Maybe Leech is not going to be an issue. It depends on how much attack speed you're actually going to end up having. You do have the reservation from the Spellslinger setup. Now, this is with 2 spells and the Spellslinger Reservation Mastery. You might even have more. I'm not 100% sure, but it is a little bit of an opportunity cost there. It might also get a little bit laggy with Corpse Explosions, but that depends on your PC. And it could also be semi-squishy depending on what the Bloodline Ascendancies do. Overall, though, while it's a little bit more risky than Elementalist, you can always respec. So I don't see why you couldn't give Necromancer a try, and it sounds really fun. Next, we have an Ascendancy that is probably the least talked about I've seen, that is quite hype and could also, just like Necromancer, be super strong with the support of some Bloodline Ascendancies. And this one is the Guardian. Guardian, if you don't know, has a node that is really impressive for Wanders because it gives a ton of flat damage. And if you don't know, getting flat damage on a Wander is something you can't easily solve until you get to endgame. Sure, you can solve it with a crazy weapon or in-stacking or something, or strength stacking later, but if we're talking anything in the first few days of the league, flat damage is premium. And one of the nodes on Guardian can give you summon elemental relics. These have 3 different forms. They are basically always up. I tested this. They are literally always up. They TP on top of you. If they die, they instantly get respawn. You basically have them always up. They give you what is akin to a level 27.5 Wrath, Anger, and Hatred. And if you don't know what that means you're going to get around about, if we average this out, with Anger and Wrath, around about 440 flat damage. It also primes you really well for Trinity, and it gives you a little bit of extra from Hatred, but most likely you're just gonna be Ellie. The worse your gear is, the better this Ascendancy gets. Now, why is not everybody hyped about Guardian? Because after Unwavering Crusade, the Guardian goes down a cliff in terms of quality. Yes, you do have Radiant Crusade, which is it still clears really well from roundabout level 30 to level 60, right? You clear packs with the minion. It has like a aura around it that deals damage. It's kind of like an RF aura. It still does damage, and it gives you 20% from hits taken from the minion instead of you. You sometimes have to resummon them in maps. It's not the best, not the worst. You definitely take it. But this node with the 440 flat damage is so outrageous that even if it costed 4 points, it would still be worth it. Then comes the problems. The next one would maybe be Bastion of Hope, which will give you 25% attack block since you have always attacked recently. But spell, you would maybe have to weave in like a Frost Blink here or there, and it's maybe not perfectly up, but then you also get 25% spell buck. So that's maybe also an option, but then we're grasping for straws, right? Like this is garbage. Like their shrine buff is absolute trash, and after that it's just, yeah, it's completely over. These are just not worth taking. So this is where the problem kicks in. Whereas the Necromancer has nodes to take while it gets to the boss and unlocks that Bloodline Ascendancy that might be in the waiting, well, the Guardian after the second node drops off a cliff. And as you can see, some of these bosses vary in difficulty and how expensive it is to get to, but some of the others are, I think, gonna proc from stuff like Owl and Delve and whatnot, so you might not be able to actually get them anytime soon. So you wanna have some backup. You wanna be able to take 8 nodes, and they are just really bad on Guardian. So yeah, the leveling is gonna be outrageous. Yeah, you're going to be way less Wanderland because you get your flat damage from your Ascendancy. Another big upside is you can respec your hero, which we're going to talk about next. And an easy 2-stat Watcher's Eye. You do get these, and they are Wrath, Hatred, and Anger. And they do count towards your Watcher's Eye. So whereas a lot of people will have to settle with like a 1-stat Watcher's Eye or maybe no Watcher's Eye, there's a good chance you're going to get some combination, which gives you a little bit of a power boost as well. But yeah, this one's highly reliant, and until I see some more Bloodlines, I will stay away from this one, but keep it in mind. Next up, Hierophant. This one has huge support for certain skills. For example, Kinetic Blast of Clustering and Power Siphon of Archmage. And these skills scale off of your maximum mana. So for example, with quality, Power Siphon of Archmage is 27%, and Kinetic Blast of Clustering gives you fizz damage equal to 15% of your mana. And I actually played this skill and league started it on a Ballista version, which felt extremely, extremely strong. It did all the content with relatively low amounts of gear. I wouldn't say it's like a great SSF experience, but if you can get the mana gear early on, I don't know. It feels amazing. It clears amazing. I'm pretty sure I have another gameplay showcase here, which is a little bit more snappy. You have good shield charge speed. You have decent defense with Mind Over Matter. So this is definitely something I'm looking into again for this patch. And in endgame, you have crazy scaling with Indigon, which can be quite expensive though. So in none of the testing I've done personally, I've played too much with it, but it is a crazy step up. Another thing that might be interesting on Hierophant is Kinetic Blast of Clustering, which is not a totem build, right? The way you would play it is you would have 3 premium nodes. You would have Divine Guidance, Sanctuary of Thought, and Conviction of Power. However, the last 2 nodes are completely wasted because you don't want anything to do with totems in endgame. So yeah, Bloodline Ascendancies might play a huge role here. If there's some kind of, I don't know, mana stacking adjacent, or even like just a good node that gives you like 30, maybe more % damage, that is a huge buff to Wanders on Hero, because that skill was already good in endgame and already very strong. So yeah, that would kind of catapult it. And that would give us a really nice progression from Power Siphon of Archmage into Kinetic Blast of Clustering as well. Downsides, it needs mana gear. Now, in the POBs that I've been using, there isn't really much mana specific. I'm not using any of the uniques that are usually tied to mana stackers, and mana is not as meta anymore. That's also something I have to point out. And I usually just have crafted mana. Anyways, the difference between a tier 1 crafted mana is like 54 versus like 73, I think. So it's not as big as with some other roles. You are, however, tied to specific skills. So these are going to be your bread and butter. They're both great skills, but if, for example, you want to try out Kinetic Rain, then it's not going to be your Ascendancy. Then we have the Deadeye, which is just straight up a classic. You get Chain, Wall Chain, +2 projectiles, Tailwind, so speed, you get extra mark effect, or whatever you want. Honestly, you could also go far shot. It's a ridiculously strong blaster class. It has insane clear speed. On this one, you definitely go KB. You will not go for Kinetic Rain, which might be a downside in itself, but I mean, who am I kidding? KB is ridiculous. You actually get quite a bit of extra damage because you don't need to use something like GMP or Chain, which some of the other Ascendancies listed might need to. It's also going to be the best Headhunter class. For a lot of these other Ascendancies, the endgame is going to look like in-stacking, strength stacking, or other things. Whereas with the new wand bases, crafting a good Fizz wand will actually be a thing that is possible, which means that you might not need to stack anything and you're just gonna have Headhunter with Fizz as extra. It will be, however, a glass cannon. If you're a blaster, that doesn't really mean anything to you. If you know exactly what you want, you get to Legion, you farm up your currency, you get to the next step, and so on. You invest multiple mirrors. This is most likely still the class, even though I was talking about all these fancy other options, and it doesn't work well with Kinetic Rain, which I don't think is gonna be too much of an issue. My last one is a little bit more of a stretch, which is stretching over the tree, which is Slayer. doesn't have any access to spell damage early on. It doesn't have any access to any of the wand clusters, which means you don't get the +1 proj. So it is a little bit of a long shot. This one's only for people who are playing the long game. So if you're trying to go masterful form with charge stacking, or you're trying to get into strength stacking and you don't want to re-level, this could be a really good choice. I know a lot of people are going Jug and stuff like that, but I think Slayer is not that far off. Cons are you have to go Life, which welcome to 2025, I guess. It has to really level with a non-1 skill. You're not going to be transitioning to a 1 skill at level 12 or level 30 something, right? Your pathing is not going to allow that. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue, but if you want to play wands ASAP, it will be. Like I said, no spell damage nearby, so you have to do something like, for example, strength stacking with Crown of Eyes, and that's not going to come online anytime soon, but if you're good at the game, it will come online a lot earlier than you might think. And yeah, it's just 4 from wand clusters. Don't sleep on this one. I know that for a lot of blasters, it just looks like Deadeye is 100% the play. I think Slayer is definitely a consideration as well. And that's about that. There is also other options, right? Like Assassin, Trickster, Warden, but I don't have too much to say about them. I'm not 100% sure. Haven't done too much research and I haven't played them personally. But yeah, as you can see, Wanders are not really tied to one specific Ascendancy, which is going to make them quite interesting to League Start. Do note though that no matter where you start with these wands, unless Kinetic Rain is OP for single target, wands do not have the best single target. So if you're somebody who needs to clear all Ubers or wants to do some of the new Ubers, it might not even be the choice at all, and you should maybe follow something more safe and get to wands maybe on your second build. With that said though, I'm really hoping we're getting some of the other Bloodline Ascendancies soon. Right now, I have some things to say about them, but I don't want to make a video yet until we get some more. I think so far they look okay-ish. Still waiting for that one oomph. But yeah, I'm going to make a video once we know more. And yeah, because I still don't have a slogan. See you next time.